Hey, what's up guys, it's Pat, and today we're gonna be taking a look at my med school application. So I think I'm gonna break this video up into two parts. In this first part, we're gonna be looking at my undergrad grades as well as my MCAT. And in the next part, we're potentially gonna look at my personal statement. I'm still debating on that, and as well as my activities. So I just wanna sort of preface this video by saying, it feels probably like the most intimate video I've made to date, just letting you guys into a pretty personal part of my life, which is my grades. And as uncomfortable as it is, I actually feel like this is one of the most important videos to make. You know, I do a lot of these philosophical videos, like what was my mindset and all that kind of stuff. But this feels a little bit more concrete, you know, that I can actually show you guys what it took from a numerical standpoint to get me into medical school. Now, another thing I really want to try to emphasize to you guys is that when you're looking at my application, there may be some instances where you feel a little bit discouraged or you feel intimidated by things I've done or certain grades I've got. And there's also certainly going to be instances where you actually feel encouraged, and you're going to see that you also have what it takes to make it to med school if that's what you want to do, if that's where you find your passion. So the point of this is to, you know, be as transparent as possible and show you guys what it took for me to get into medical school. So let's do it. And that using this website, the AAMC, to give you a lot of information on the whole application process, the timeline, how it all works, is really, really an important thing to do. Kind of become a student of the whole application game, if you will. But from a very basic overview, I think the application comes out early May, like May 1st or something. And then earliest you can submit it is late May. So you can see here I submitted it May 28th, 2020, a couple years ago. Crazy. And it took about a month to actually be processed, to be verified. And it was finally verified on this June 30th. So about a month. And what they're doing there is taking the grades that you will have inputted into the application. They're taking the transcripts that you had sent to them, and they're cross-matching all those, making sure everything is legit. As you know, that's like the big thing that takes the amount of time. But we're going to go through the application. But a lot of it's pretty self-explanatory, just, you know, biographic information, contact information, all this stuff that is pretty straightforward. So we're not going to dig into that too much. In general, I tried to delete some of my very, you know, identifying information. So, you know, I let you guys in on a lot, but I can't let you know everything about me. But in general, I'll kind of go slow so you guys can get an idea of what my application was. Okay, so here's some parents and guardian stuff. Again, pretty self-explanatory. And just a little bit more information here. I do have one sibling, but that's all you know. And okay, great. So I tried to get rid of my school and everything. I will tell you, I did not go to any phenomenally prestigious academic institution or anything like that. Just a pretty normal undergrad. And as you guys know, I did get my degree in Bachelor of Science in Nursing. So we're going to look through all of this stuff. It's, like I said earlier, this is going to feel a little bit embarrassing. Just in general, my course throughout undergrad is I did decently well throughout my first 2 years, my freshman, sophomore year. And then come junior, senior year, as you'll see a breakdown of my GPAs, I did not do that well. I actually did pretty bad. So normally when you try to think about your grade progression, it actually is a little bit better to not do as well early and then to sort of improve and to have that upward curve throughout undergrad. However, I did not have that. I did, though, do better post undergrad when I was taking classes and working. So we're going to look through all that. So in general, I'm not going to go through all of these, but you guys can see I did okay my freshman year, still freshman, you know, a lot of A's and B's. Okay, come sophomore year, and these were all like the very basic nursing classes, you know, A&P, something is banging on my roof, health science chemistry, which I talked about in my other videos, but isn't really a general chemistry, isn't an organic chemistry, so it didn't count for anything like a prereq, and it was really just a quick and dirty on chemistry as a whole. So some philosophy, some other stuff in there. Now coming into my sophomore year, you can see I'm still in this A to B world, still taking very preliminary nursing classes, a couple other, random things like anthropology, some other electives thrown around in there. All right, and here's where I actually get to, I don't want to say embarrassing, but I guess embarrassing is the right word. I didn't really work as hard as I should have in my junior and senior year of college. And luckily, that didn't bring me down enough that I couldn't make it to where I am today. But if you guys happen to be in college right now and you are potentially looking to go to medical school, or you just want to keep all of these doors open, it's easy for me to say, somebody who didn't do it, but the best advice I would say is like work your butt off across the board. Be great in everything that you do. And that was not me in undergrad, but I would like to think that that is at least what I strive to be now. A couple of years more mature, a couple of years past my undergrad experience. So here we are in our junior year. Hope you guys can see this red pointy. I don't know. And okay, I got me a C+ right here. B's a little bit more pass fail area. Not really too many A's though. At B+, senior year, B- is B+. I got 2 C+ my senior year to go along with my 1 C+ my junior year. Some more pass fail stuff. This A was only in a 1 credit course, so it's not really too significant. Here continues to be in my senior year, another C+, only a 2 credit course, but still. And B-, hitting a couple A-. And I'll kind of give it away when I show you guys my GPA, but my senior year was my worst year in college. Like I said, I had no upward trajectory. It was downward trajectory, unfortunately, through undergrad. So again, going slow so you guys can just see the classes, but if you did a nursing undergrad, these are probably all relatively straightforward. So here we go. As you guys know, I started to work right out of undergrad. I started working at CVICU. I worked for 1 whole year, and then I started to take classes. So 1 year after I started in the fall, because I started in August, so a year later in the fall, I took my Bio 101, I took with a lab right here, so 3 credits, 1 credit for lab. Took my Gen Chem lab. So this is what I took in the fall, these 4, okay? And as you can see, I did pretty well in all of those, right? Great. And then come spring, we're looking at semester 2 here in all these, okay? Come spring, I took Bio 2, right, with lab. I took my Gen Chem 2 with lab. And again, I continued to do pretty well, picking up all A's in those. Okay, great. Now, these classes, I just put community college here so you guys can see. These classes, when I applied, I had not taken them yet. However, I will tell you, I actually have never taken organic chem, which is kind of a fun fact that people don't always believe. So I didn't take organic 1 or 2. I was going to take it if need be. But anyways, I didn't obviously put a grade, so was nothing disingenuous there. But I did, after application in the year that I was waiting here in medical school to get in, I did take physics 1 lecture lab, and I did take physics 2 lecture and lab, and I actually got all A's in those classes as well. So in my post undergrad schooling, I actually had all A's, which for me was a pretty cool thing coming from, as you guys can see, my grades in undergrad. And it's really easy to tell yourself like, oh, I'm smart, or I can do well. But at the end of the day, if you're not doing it, what does that really mean, right? So I could tell myself that all I wanted to, but it really felt affirming to finally be that person that I knew I could be, and to start kind of cranking out those A's, and to end up with, it was just like not basic classes, but I don't want to say 4.0, but for the most part, to end up with, perfect GPA in my classes post undergrad was pretty cool for me. So here we go. Just so you guys understand the grading, it's broken down into what is like science classes, which is like biology, chem, physics, math, I think. And then all your other classes, which is going to be everything that's not those BCPM courses. So I got really lucky because a lot of the classes I was getting C pluses on were nursing specific classes like med surg or psych or something like that. So those actually were not considered in that BCPM or that like science GPA. So my first and second year and then post undergrad, all those classes I just showed you where I got A's, those all contributed to my science, my BCPM GPA. So I actually did pretty well as far as that goes, right? So I had me a 3.9 overall, and that includes my freshman and sophomore of 3.68, 4.0 in undergrad, as well as my post-bacc 4.0. So my science GPA was 3.9. Now we look at all the other classes, and here we go. This is my progression through undergrad. I got a 3.2, and this is my non-science classes, so it was somewhere in the middle between 3.68 and 3.2. But here you go, actually, a 3.38, okay? My freshman year, I got a 3.9 total my sophomore year, which was my best year in undergrad. And I got a 4.0 in all the science, and I did pretty good in all the other classes. But I got a 3.9, and then, yeah, come my junior and come my senior year, which in my undergrad, there was actually no science courses, as you guys can see right here. It was all just these nursing type of courses. I got a 3.13 and a 2.91. So I would say those are not the typical grades that you think of when you hear about somebody in medical school. And again, I'm not particularly proud of the effort and that I put in my junior and senior years of undergrad at all. But luckily, I was able to do pretty well in my post-bacc, my kind of do-it-yourself post-bacc right here with a 4.0. And my overall GPA was a 3.45. So just to reiterate that one more time, my science GPA overall, including my freshman and sophomore year right here, including my post-bacc type of thing, was a 3.9. And my GPA that was non-science, this is my undergrad, obviously didn't take any of those in the post-bacc time, and that was a 3.26, coming together to be this total 3.45. Now, even though I didn't have that upward trajectory throughout undergrad, I did have a pretty solid bump in my post-bacc classes. And I think that that was a really important thing for me to be able to show that I can actually do well in these science courses. Also, that was while I was working full-time as a nurse. So I was in a much better place. I was significantly more mature, ultimately because I knew what I wanted to do, right? So I was able to be more disciplined. I was able to work my butt off because what I wanted to do was so clear to me, and really nothing was going to stop me. I was really ready to be great in everything that I do across the board. Finally, this thing that I had thought about so many times, I was actually finally able to do it, which is pretty cool. Okay, so now we're going to get into my MCAT. And you guys, if you watch my other videos on the MCAT, you kind of know my process for how I studied for it and my timeline for taking the MCAT. But I will say it was a tough test. I probably spent 6 or 7 months preparing for it. Mind you, that was while I was taking these 8 credits in the post-bacc here, as well as working full time. So I needed to give myself adequate time to actually do well enough. But yeah, so I took it, let's see, I don't know, late June is when I took my MCAT. Now I want to say, I told you guys the importance of taking these practice MCATs so you can see where you stand and you can determine if actually taking it is going to be beneficial for you or if you're just going to kind of flop on it. If you're going to go take it and not do well, and it's not going to give you a chance to get into med school, probably don't want to take it at that time, right? You want to continue to work and work and work and then push it back until you're at a score that you want. So for me, I was lucky enough to start to be scoring on those practice tests around where I wanted to. And, I think I got, so to kind of give you just cat's out of the bag a little bit, but I got a 513 on my MCAT, which was in the 87th percentile of all MCAT takers. So in my practice test, I was sitting between 512s and 515. So I was actually hoping to do a little bit better, and I felt really good after the test. I felt really good, and I thought I crushed it. I know I did fine, but I really thought I crushed it. But that's not the case, but obviously it worked out for me. So just to kind of to go through this a little bit, as I mentioned earlier, you guys know I didn't take organic chemistry or physics prior to the MCAT. So this first section, which is the chemical physical foundations of biological systems, ChemPhys for short, in all my practice tests, I was between that 126, 127 area, because I really hadn't taken half of the classes in that section. So getting a 126 is about what I expected. I was actually, kind of excited to not get a 124 or something a little bit lower than that. So that was cool. That's what I expected. And that was a 65th percentile in that section. Okay, and then just to go out to the other science course, which is the biochem, the biological and biochem foundations of living systems. I got a 127. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was actually a little bit disappointed in this score. Now, I'd never taken biochemistry, and I don't know exactly how comprehensive my biology classes were in my post-bacc, but I was kind of getting around 129 to 131 on most of my practice tests. So I felt really good on this section as well. I thought I was going to score like 3 points higher on this, to be completely honest. So that may have pushed this a little bit higher, but kind of is what it is. But I was a little bit disappointed in this score, to be completely honest. But still, it was in the 73rd percentile. So, these are both like pretty much near average, right? 65, 73, pretty near average. So the two sections that I did pretty well on, I'd say, is the CARS, the critical analysis reasoning skills, as well as the psychological, social, and biological foundations of behavior. For CARS, I got a 129. And again, I'm somebody who expects a lot from myself. On my practice tests, I was actually scoring a little bit higher than that. So I thought that I had maybe 1 or 2 more points in me. But, when you kind of get into that like 95th percentile area, you're looking at one more question wrong or one more question right. And whether it's a lapse in focus for 30 seconds on the actual test itself or whatever it may be, that could be the difference between a 129 and a 131. So again, obviously it was enough to get me here, but I was a little bit upset about that, but that's kind of hard to say when you got like 95th percentile. And then for this psych soc, I was always scoring right around this on all my practice tests, around this 131 point, which is a 98th percentile. So I was content with getting 131 there. It just makes me think like, how many more questions did I need to get 100 on it, or 132, but that's all good. So I know we talked about this in my MCAT video. If you guys haven't seen that, and sorry, this is a long video, but I think it's important that you understand. The grading goes from 472 to 428, and the mean for all these sections is 125, and the high is 132. So just so that can make sense, if I got a 125 right here on ChemPhys, my percentile would have been right around 50. And the fact that I got a 131 puts me right at the upper range at this 98th percentile. So big thing I want to emphasize to you guys about my MCAT is that, as you can see, my science sections, 126 and 127, were nothing phenomenal, But what I realized early in the MCAT process is that I'm not going to have that huge foundation in science. So where can I actually make a big difference? And it was pretty clear that the CARS and the psych soc were 2 places where I could get points, right? And really bump up this total score. So for me, I kind of worked my butt off on psych and soc. And I also did a decent amount of practice with CARS. Luckily, it kind of came to me. For some people, CARS is sort of hit or miss. Some people, it's not even like an intelligence thing as much as just how your brain works. Some people, it's really challenging, and luckily for me, I was able to kind of make it happen for the most part on that. And so my point is, even though the sciences were not at the same level as my other courses, my other sections, I was able to make up for my little lower scores by taking control of the things that I could control, those non-science courses, and working my butt off and doing well on those to really keep my total score at a decent place. So in general, I think 2 years ago, the average score for medical school matriculation was like a 512. And I think that that means that 50% of people were below 512 and 50% of people were above 512. But a 512 sits at around an 85th percentile score. So I got a 513, looking at like 87th percentile. So like a tiny bit above that, which for me, again, I would have loved to score a little bit higher, but is what it is. I think it was really important for me to show that I could do well on like this standardized test, the MCAT. You know, they need these metrics to break things down into black and white sometimes. And the MCAT is certainly one of those for med school application. But looking at my GPA, you know, where I had less than a 3 and just barely over a 3, this was a way for me to show that, hey, those are not actually, you know, who I am. Also, along with this 4.0, I got, while, you know, taking those classes post-undergrad. But this was a way for me to show like, hey, I am a pretty intelligent person. You know, I'm not going to be defined by my GPA from what was, you know, 4 years ago almost when I was taking, or maybe more like 2 or 3 years prior to when I took the MCAT. So I hope that this was okay thing. So the next part, just to give you a little bit of a preview on the next but the next video is going to be into these experiences. And, you know, you have the ability to put in 15 experiences and make 3 of them your most meaningful. And we're going to go through that in the next section. So yeah, we'll make that video in a couple days, get that out to you guys. But in general, I hope that this video was pretty clear, that it gave you guys good insight into like just straight up my numerical grades and what it took for me to get into medical school. And if you guys have any questions, throw them down in the comments below. And I look forward to hearing from y'all. And I'll talk to you guys soon. All right? Peace and love.